Welcome to Know Your Sheet. From tracking targets to budget battles, I've got a sheet for that. Let's get organized so you can know your sheet too. In this mini-series, we will work to know your budget sheet. This mini-series will walk you through setting up a spreadsheet to help you keep track of your income and expenses so you can start taking more control of where your money goes. This video will continue from where we left off last time, where we have a working budget spreadsheet with helpful visualizations and formatting. In this final planned episode, we'll go into some variations of data that may help you in your unique budget and tracking needs. If you have varying income, this budget sheet will work just fine for you. You can easily expand the income rows to be weekly or whatever period you need, as we discussed in episode 1. Then you can just enter whatever values based on the income that you receive. It's not hard-coded or there's no formula references, so you don't have to worry about it. You can just enter what you need. But if you want to track things in more details, you can do something similar to what we did with irregular expenses, where we have a separate sheet where we do all sorts of our special calculations and then refer to it back on the budget sheet. So for this sheet, let's pretend we're trying to keep track of our working hours and try to predict what our income looks like in the upcoming paychecks. Okay, so let's start a brand new sheet for income. We'll want to log the period, the rate, how many hours we worked. We're going to assume it's one job, so the hourly rate is the same for all of our working hours. So we'll reference that on the side here. And we'll calculate the pay based on the hourly rate. And then we need to estimate what the check is going to be, because there's the estimated amount that you will get paid versus the actual amount, because we're going to kind of predict the taxes on it. Every state has very specific income withholding calculations. We're not going to get into that here. You may know the tax brackets for your state very well. You can incorporate that calculation in here if you want. But for the simplicity and brevity of this video, we're going to go ahead and just estimate. So in our example budget sheet, twice a month is our payment. So let's log our hours for twice a month going forward. But let's put in some hours that we worked. And calculate some pay. And we'll copy the formula along. But let's make sure that it's an absolute reference. That's the $, so that we don't copy and accidentally have it reference the following cells when we copy it along. And let's say we only get 80% of our check because 20% goes to federal and state taxes. Again, please check your tax brackets, because this is not an overarching formula you should use, because it is going to be really inaccurate. But this is just for an example. Let's say that the income that we're tracking, that's about right. Okay, and then we'll add a row for a check that we haven't received yet, but we know what hours we worked and we can continue with the estimation. So now, if we go back to the budget sheet, we actually should be filling in for September, October, November. So let me fix the periods on here because pure habit starting with January. Also, let's fix some of these hours because if we're going by 2 weeks, this is not exactly full-time hours. So let's make some adjustments here real quick. And since I don't have the actual checks for this imaginary job that I am logging for, I'm going to go ahead and use random again to just generate some data that's a little different, but more realistic looking. And let's copy and paste that down. So now that we have these values, we can copy and paste the values over. So obviously, if you have the actual check, you'll want those numbers. But if not, you reference the estimated amount. And I like to highlight it so that we can see the difference between the estimated and actual income. So you can take a look at the calculations for upcoming months to get an idea of where you're at. Now, something that I actually like to do, I don't prefer to put my projections into my budget spreadsheet, but if you like to project month by month, you're going to want to do it that way or make a copy of the spreadsheet, however you want to do it. But I actually like to look ahead just in the next month because that's where you are immediately able to make changes and adjustments. And I like looking ahead, but I like being realistic. We'll definitely want to plan for a year out, 18 months out, but realistically, what is going on in this next month? What can I do right now that will impact the very next set of bills I have? What I normally would do is at the bottom of my budget spreadsheet, I will keep track of what my current savings are, what I'm predicting income that's yet to be deposited into my account, but I know is coming pretty soon, or it's the very next paycheck that I'm getting. The predicted bills, what I know will be paid out soon or next. And then calculating, well, after I pay all of that based on what I think is coming in and what I think is going out, then you can look at where your savings is at after and start getting an idea of, oh no, are you going to be pretty off or not? It's also pretty good to look at the predicted in-out difference. And if you don't want to just look at the next month, you can always move these labels all the way to the left and do this for every month. So you can kind of get a visual of where you're predicting it to go, and above you'll see exactly where it actually went, and you can make a chart for that. Now, having an idea of how our finances will play out, let's circle back to the topic of debt repayment. Let's say that you have a balance on one or more of your credit cards that you want to pay down. Let's go ahead and start a new sheet called CC for credit card and copy all of our credit card expenses over. So I'm not here to tell you how best to pay off your debts. You'll want to talk to a financial advisor for that, but we can start looking at how much money is left over each month and determine where best to apply it. It would be smart to track the interest and total amount so we can see where we can try to eliminate debt the quickest and save the most money in the long run. Again, this is a very crude way to do it, but I like visibility, so itemizing this out where I can see it really helps me put things into perspective and helps me make better decisions. Okay, same thing as before. We're going to put in some fake data here so that we can calculate and show you how we can use the numbers. We have a balance. The amount that we paid that goes towards interest. A payment, how much we actually paid on that card, so what leaves our account. And the remaining balance at the end of the month. This is just to help us track on how much is going where. And just to help with calculating out the fake data, we're going to add a added balance. This is how much the balance will increase, and everything else is based on calculations because we're trying to generate some data that looks realistic-ish. And something that will really help us is getting the average. And we're going to want to do this for all the values here. And we'll want to do this for each of the credit cards so we have a better visual of where our money is going. We'll go ahead and say CC1 is 15% interest. And CC2 is 20% interest. And while we're at it, we will want the totals of how much we've paid to that card, as well as how much interest have we paid on this card. And I have this only going out till June, so let's go ahead and move these formulas out and extend this all the way to all 12 months. Obviously, this is not how you would normally calculate. Interest only applies to the amount you have not paid off in the month that you charged the amount. But we're doing this so that we can get some calculations that look realistic-ish. This is not meant to be super accurate, just realistic enough so that we can kind of see how we can use the data. Because that's the important part, is once you jot all this information down, because you can get it off of your statements, how will we use this data? And that's where the averages come in, and being able to tell how much you're paying on interest and how much you're adding to that card every month is helpful. Okay, now this is where we can get smart about projecting and paying down the debt. I have a very simplistic formula here where I'm taking the remaining balance and adding the added balance. You're going to want to figure out how to calculate your interest, how much is rolling over. But let's just keep it that simple so that we can kind of look at what this looks like. So going forward, if we continue to increase the balance based on the added balance, how does it look as we're paying it down? Once we have the numbers in here, the idea is making the data visible to you. Play around with it. Put in numbers based on what you think might be upcoming because of the history that you already have with that card. There obviously is a lot more we can do with this, but something that I will continue to reiterate is having the data visible to you, having the information available to you so that you can make the best decisions. One thing I like about a simple table like this is that if you just don't look at anything else and you look at the total payment and interest, you can start determining, hey, maybe this credit card, I pay so much in interest to them every month, and the total is ridiculous. Maybe I will pay that down and not leave a balance on that one. I know we don't all have that option, but having that visibility, having that knowledge is really important. I mean, you can't manage something you can't see. And that is one way to know your sheet. This series has 4 episodes planned, and this was the last planned episode. But if you've got questions or requests, leave them in the comments. I'll dig through them all and whip up a part 5 based on what you want added to the budget sheet, because your sheet should work for you. Got a spreadsheet win or a formula fail? Drop it in the comments and share your sheet. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep your cells clean and your formulas tight. And remember, don't just use your sheet, know your sheet.